Welcome to the Finding Financial Freedom podcast with the Frugal Physician, where Dr. Disha Spath will be your companion on this exciting financial adventure. Get ready to conquer debt, build wealth, and embrace a mindful spending lifestyle that will empower you to live life on your own terms.
This show is sponsored by Set for Life Insurance, the ultimate client experience in the insurance industry. Are you looking for the perfect insurance coverage that suits your needs? Founded in 1993 by President Jamie K. Fleischner, Set for Life Insurance specializes in individual life, disability, and long-term care insurance. As brokers, they represent numerous companies in the industry, ensuring that their clients get the best products at the most cost-effective rate. What sets Set for Life Insurance apart? You'll enjoy special discounts, priority underwriting handling, and even exceptions in the underwriting process. So why wait? Contact Set for Life Insurance today and let them be your insurance partner for life. Visit their website at www.setforlifeinsurance.com or call them toll-free at 1-888-553-3559. Welcome back to the Finding Financial Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Disha Spath, aka the Frugal Physician, and today we're diving into a powerful mix of purpose, profit, and property. My guest is Dr. Alex Schloe, Air Force physician, real estate investor, and a co-founder of The RAL Room. He's also the host of the Physicians and Properties podcast, where he helps doctors achieve financial freedom through real estate. Today, we'll explore how Alex went from a traditional path in medicine to a life of autonomy and adventure, and how you can too. Hey, Dr. Schloe, how are you?
I'm great. Feel free to call me Alex. I'm doing awesome. I'm really excited to hop on your podcast. Big fan of what you're doing. And I will say your podcast voice is so much better than mine. I could listen to you all day.
That's really kind of you. Thank you. I am really excited to have you on today because I've been following you for a little while as well and really enjoying what you've been doing. But let's start at the beginning. Tell us about who you are, what your family's like, and what's going on in your life right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm a Christian husband, father, family medicine physician in the Air Force, actually getting ready to separate from the Air Force. My final out day is on Friday. So pretty
Wow.
crazy. A lot of things happening right now, a lot of change, but super, super excited for the journey going forward. I'm going to take about 3.5 months off and just travel with the family. We're going on some camping trips. Are going to be going to Yellowstone, the Tetons, and Glacier for about 4 weeks. We have a little camper, which was one of the best purchases I've ever made. And then we're also headed to Europe for 4 weeks as well. So I'm looking forward to some travel and adventure with the family. And then I'll hop back into work at some point.
Wow, that sounds amazing. How old are your kids?
Yeah, so we have a 4.5-year-old named Jack, and we have a 10-month-old named Owen. They're the best. Owen
Oh.
decided he didn't want to sleep last night, so I feel your pain after just night shift. I also spent a lot of the night awake, but it's worth it. They're the best. It's so much fun having kids and being a dad, and really a lot of what I do and what I teach on Physicians and Properties is how you can use real estate and entrepreneurship to have the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want to. And for me, that's, spend as much time as I can with my kids, especially when they're younger and they want to hang out with me and they still think I'm cool.
Seriously, it doesn't last very long where the kids actually want to hang out with you and all these beautiful, pure, happy moments. So yeah, I think you're such an inspiration. You're walking the walk of financial freedom and, making the time to have solid time with your family. That's really admirable. Did your financial freedom journey have anything to do with you getting out of the Air Force?
Not really. It had some to do with it. I think the kind of control piece in terms of financial freedom and having some flexibility in the military do not go hand in hand. And
Yeah.
so that was a part of it. My service commitment came up. So I did the HBSP scholarship program. And so I, went to college, then got into med school, then applied for the health promotion scholarship program through the Air Force and got accepted, and then went to medical school. And you do some trainings each summer of med school in the military, and then went to residency at Eglin Air Force Base.
Mm.
family medicine, and then now stationed in Colorado Springs. And so you owe 4 years of active duty service time after residency. So residency is active duty, and then the 4 years after. And my service commitment was just up. We really love Colorado Springs, which is where we're at right now. And it was really funny. They called me and they're like, "Hey, we're working on a PCS, which is a move away from the area for you." And I was like, "Hey, you don't need to do that. I'm planning on separating. And also, we love Colorado Springs. We don't want to leave." And they're like, "Well, we're really sorry. If you stayed in, we would have to move you." And then the next day they called and they're like, "Hey, do you want to stay in Colorado Springs? Is there any other base that you'd be interested in staying in for? What about international, heading overseas?" And I was like, "No, I think I'm done. And it's just my time." And so it's been a really great time overall being in the uniform. It's an honor to wear the uniform every day and take care of folks, but just excited to have a little bit more time and flexibility, spend more time with the family. I'm going to join a direct primary care practice, most likely working a couple days per week. And
All
I
right.
still love seeing patients and I love practicing medicine, but I'm really looking forward to having some more time. I think that a lot of our kind of problems in medicine are we just don't have as much time to build those relationships and really dive deep and figure out, okay, why are you sick? Is it because you're not exercising, because you're not sleeping? Is it because you're not eating well? Like there's a lot of things that we just overlook because we almost have to, and that's just how the system's built. And so that's another frustrating thing for me. And so that's why I love real estate and entrepreneurship, and some degree of financial freedom can give you that opportunity to practice medicine how you want to, whether that's a direct primary care clinic, whether that's cutting back, a half day less per week. I mean, it can look like whatever you want it to be, but I think that having that flexibility is really important.
I totally agree with you. I mean, your journey rings true to me too. And interestingly, I'm also launching my own DPC soon.
Oh,
So
awesome.
yeah, so it sounds like we've been on the same path. Let's talk about what drew you to medicine in the first place. Why did you want to become a doctor?
Yeah, great question. Well, congrats on DPC. That's amazing.
Thank
I
you.
always wanted to be a physician. I was actually like that classic kid who's like 3 in his Halloween outfit of scrubs and like a surgical mask, and always wanted to be a physician. No one really in medicine in my family, but my mom, when I was getting older, when I was in elementary school, she got quite ill and spent a lot of time in the hospital and a lot of time at the doctor's office. And I was always just trying to take care of her, whether that was like a cool wash rag or whatever that would be.
Yeah.
And so always just kind of wanted to care for others. And then she ended up getting better and working at our family medicine physician's office where we grew up. And Dr. King was amazing. She was like the classic family medicine physician who, she took care of me and my brother. I have an identical twin brother, and my parents and my grandparents. And then you'd see her at baseball games in the community and stuff like that. And so she was just like the quintessential family medicine physician. And I was like, hey, I want to do that. I want to have the opportunity to take care of everyone from the womb to the tomb and be part of the community and just really build those relationships with folks. And so always wanted to do medicine, always wanted to do family medicine, and I don't regret it at all. There's certainly been some challenging times and a little bit of burnout here and there, but I don't regret it at all. And it really is an honor to do what we do.
Yeah, it's interesting, how the dichotomy of the doctors that we've seen that were so influential in our lives. Like I had a pediatrician who was similarly so inspiring to me, and I wanted to be just like him. And even now, I've encountered amazing family doctors that have this ideal relationship with their community and have been able to really just be a presence, be that person for so many people around them that's there for them when they're sick and, is their go-to for advice. And that's who we all want to be. But somehow through the evolution of medicine, being that person has become more and more difficult, more and more demanding, more and more requiring of sacrificing of everything in your life. And I think a lot of that has to do with the corporatization of medicine and big entities owning everyone and loss of autonomy. And so I think this shift to DPC is trying to correct course and bring us back to why we went into medicine in the first place. I love talking about DPC and how amazing it is, but let's move to your real estate journey. How did you get into it?
Yeah. Well, thank you. Great question. I loved real estate too. I was always the kid that had those. I don't remember if you remember those like pamphlets that had homes for sale when, back in the day. I was always looking through those, thinking through how I was going to do that. Looking at the $1 million house before Zillow even existed on Zillow, thinking about like how I could never afford that. And then one day getting closer to it. But I always loved real estate. And how it really started was my dad. I was going to med school at the Medical College of Virginia in Richmond, now VCU School of Medicine. And my dad and I were walking around Richmond. I was looking for an apartment, and the Air Force at the time gave you a $20,000 signing bonus when you got the HBSP scholarship. And so my dad was like, "Hey, how about you take that $20,000 sign-on bonus, and why don't you buy either like a fixer-upper or a duplex or something like that, and fix it while you're in med school, and rent it out, and live for free." It was house hacking before it was cool or before it was known. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, I did what most kids do, and I did not listen to my dad. But he planted a seed that day, and I regret it to this day, not taking his advice and buying something while I was there. But nonetheless, he planted a seed that day. And then later on in medical school, I started getting introduced to the White Coat Investor, Jim Dolly, and Letty and Kenji, and then Bigger Pockets, and some of these other fantastic resources that are out there. And I was like, hey, I know once I get in residency, I'm going to get started on my real estate investing journey. So I went to Eglin, which is in Fort Walton Beach, Florida, Destin, Florida, on the
Nice.
Panhandle. It was amazing. Yeah, that white sugar sand was incredible, and
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful water. It was awesome being at the beach. But I wanted to buy a duplex or a quadplex or something like that, so 2 or 4 unit property, and live in one unit, rent out the others. There just really wasn't many of those on the market there in Florida. And so we bought a fixer upper house for $58 out of pocket with a physician loan, no money down,
Nice.
which is an amazing way to get started. And I remember being terrified to spend $58 to buy this house. But now the house it's doubled in value. We rent it out it's a long term rental right now, and we're cash flowing about $1,100 per month, and that's how I got started. Then I met my business partner Charlie, and we started buying some short term rentals, and then we pivoted into residential assisted living with another partner, Luke. So Charlie, Luke, and I now buy assisted living homes. We have 5 in Arizona, and then we have 3 in Wisconsin. We've partnered with operators, so lease those out to operators, so we're not involved in the day to day care of those. And then I've done a bunch of other stuff. I have shiny object syndrome, so I invested in a mobile home park, and part of the GP team for a boutique hotel and a mobile home park, and then a new development, 485 independent living facility in the Villages of Florida. And then we're getting ready to start working on a 320 unit independent living deal as well in Florida. So it's been a wild journey, but it's been really cool to see how much has how much we've been blessed over the last 4 years with these real estate ventures, and built the mastermind and the podcast too during that time. So it's
Wow.
been a fun ride.
Yeah. So you said you were part of the GP team. So are you basically are you syndicating now?
Yeah, well, here and there, I'll help, raise capital, do investor relations, do whatever I need to do to help assist the rest of the GP team on these deals. But it was a kind of a cool story. The last deal that I did was Francesca Byrne. She's a physician, and her husband Ryan Byrne, and they have Cash Flow Capital Club, and had them on my podcast, and they were amazing. And I remember after the podcast was over, I talked to my wife. I was like, "Hey, if I could invest with them sometime, I definitely would." Like, just fantastic. Ryan's got a ton of experience. Unfortunately, he was a Marine, but he's got a ton of experience, and he went to.
Hoorah.
Yeah, exactly. He went to they let him use his crowns for the Marines while he was at Yale. But he got his MBA there, and then he went and worked for some investment bankers, and had a lot of experience in commercial real estate. So, anyways, they're just a really impressive team. And then Ryan called me one day. I was like, "Hey, man, I need your help on this property." And long story short, that was the 485 independent living new development in the Villages of Florida, which is like Disney World for retirees. And my wife, Stephanie, her grandfather and grandma live there in the Villages. And so we've gone down to visit a couple times. It's amazing. They have 52 golf courses. So he's like, "Yeah, I can golf a new golf course every week. It's wild." And
Wow.
so anyway, so when I saw that opportunity, I was like, "Oh man, this is a fantastic opportunity." And luckily, worked really well with the team. And then we're working on this next project together as well. So it's been really cool.
So you talked us through your first property, which you bought and then rented out. You bought as a primary residence with a physician loan and then rented out afterwards. How did this journey evolve? Give us a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so bought that first home, $58 out of pocket, then no money down physician loan. Then we bought a short-term rental in Ellijay, Georgia. Charlie, and another partner, Emily, and myself. That was an interesting experience. I'll give you the highlights and lessons learned from that experience. It was really quite rural property in Georgia, really beautiful short-term rental. It was on 20 acres. We're like, oh, we're gonna, put a bunch of cabins and do all kinds of cool development stuff there, which we didn't end up doing. But the things that I learned there was always important to get multiple inspections. So we didn't see the property in person, but the realtor went a couple times. She sent us a bunch of videos. Everything looked great. The inspector went out, did the inspection. The inspection report looked great. It said on there, like, no evidence of water intrusion ever. Seller disclosures look great. You can see where I'm going with this. And then we get there the day after we closed, and there's probably 2 inches of water in the basement. And it was finished basement. It clearly had been flooded multiple times. There was some mold along the trim,
Oh
like
my God.
just a mess. And then the roof, which apparently looked great per the inspection report, we had to replace half of that. They poured a concrete walkway over the septic system, so you couldn't even get to the septic system to pump. But we had a septic inspection that said the septic system looks fine. It was just a mess. And so we learned a lot about trusting your service providers and really doing your due diligence there. We got really fortunate that it rented well, and then the market really appreciated it a lot during COVID, and we did still make pretty substantial returns on that property, which we've sold probably 3 years ago or so now. And then we moved to Colorado Springs, and that was the height of the market. So we offered on 18 homes here in Colorado Springs before we got the house that we live in now. And our plan was that we were going to find a house that had a walkout basement, and we were going to rent out the basement and house hack while we were here. And we could not get anything accepted. So we finally got the house that I live in now accepted under contract. It did not have a walkout basement. It was a little bit lower in terms of price range. And so we're like, you know what, let's just take the savings and let's dig a walkout basement. So we did that. That was an interesting experience, but we created a separate entrance. And so we rent our basement out, which is really cool. So we house hack that. And we live, if you average it out throughout the year, we live almost for free in Colorado Springs, which
Wow.
is really, really cool. And that's what I tell folks a lot is just like, think about, hey, how could you house hack? How could you use your primary residence to generate some degree of income? And then we're able to just funnel that money that we saved into other investment opportunities. And we love it. My wife's an amazing host, and so she likes being able to host folks, and it's cool to provide that space. And we have folks that are now coming back and staying with us again, and so that's been really cool. From there, we bought a geodesic dome, stick build, like geodesic dome, really cool property up in the mountains in Colorado.
Mhm.
That is a short-term rental as well. Super unique property, which is awesome. And I think that's what you need to really succeed in the Airbnb short-term rental space right now is it needs to be like a really unique property, that Instagrammable type property, have really nice views, great amenities. You have to go above and beyond to really do well in the short-term rental space right now. But that's been great. That house has grossed about $100,000 every year, which has been awesome. And so we're super blessed there. And then from there, that's when we started pivoting into residential assisted living. And that's a whole other journey and topic. So I'll pause there since I've been rambling.
So it sounds like you've had a lot of short-term rental experience, and yeah, it seems that the market seems to be getting saturated, and the uniqueness of your geodesic dome. I mean, I find it intriguing from over here right now, right? So that's
Yeah.
really great. So now you're about to tell us about residential assisted living, which is a different beast altogether. Let's get into that because I really want to hear about how you got into it.
Sure. Yeah. So residential assisted living, first I'll explain what it is, why I think it's the best opportunity to invest in real estate now and for decades to come. And then we'll talk a little bit about our journey in assisted living as well. Residential assisted living, folks hear assisted living, they immediately jump to that big box facility, that like Brookdale facility, that nursing home facility. And a lot of us have had some negative experiences there, whether that's loved ones in those facilities or whether that's rotating as physicians in those facilities or working in the ER. And seeing some of the negative outcomes that have happened with when you just have too many residents per caregiver. And sometimes a caregiver ratio in some of these big facilities is 1 to 20, which is
Mm.
really hard for a CNA to provide any sort of good care to 20 different residents at a time. And so residential assisted living is not that. It is not a big box facility. It's essentially taking a large single story residential home in a residential neighborhood with as many bedrooms as bathrooms as possible, or renovating as many bedrooms and bathrooms as possible and turning that into like a boutique senior living home.
Hmm.
The beautiful things about that is you can have a much better caregiver ratio. So typically it's like 1 to 5 or 1 to 8, depending on how many residents you have. And then the residents love it because they're getting more personalized care. It's more of a tight knit community. Oftentimes, it's in a similar neighborhood that they already were living in, and so they're able to stay plugged in with their community, and it's really great. And then it's also typically cheaper. So I'm going to throw out some numbers, and it's going to sound like a lot of money, but I want to just kind of walk through the different options. So you could have a caregiver, 24/7 caregiver in your house. That's typically going to cost, if you're thinking about 24/7 care, it's typically going to cost about $90,000 per year to do that in your house. And these are
Hmm.
just rough estimates. If you were to go to one of these bigger facilities, it'll initially look cheaper. So typically what they'll do is you'll have like a activity fee or almost like a wait list fee to get on their wait list, which will be thousands of dollars. Then you'll have their base monthly fee. Then you'll have an add-on fee for level of care. So whatever level of care that you may need, that can typically be charged like $72 per day or whatever that may be for the facility, and then food and then activities. So it all adds up. So that typically is going to come out to about $72,000 per year, sometimes more, sometimes less. Of course, this is just generalities. And then residential assisted living, it costs about $5,000 or so dollars per month. And that's usually all inclusive. It's just a one set rate, and obviously that's 60,000. So a substantial savings for way better care in a way better community. And so we love residential assisted living for that reason and many more. The crazy thing is when we talk about the demographics of assisted living, it's wild. So if we think just the demographics of the nation as a whole, we're getting so much older. 10,000 people per day are turning 65, 4,000 people per day are turning 85. And what that looks like is there's 77 million baby boomers in America. 7 out of 10 of them are going to need long term care, which is 59 million boomers, which is a ton. And we're already about 1 million beds short of assisted living beds. And then the new development of these new beds are essentially how fast these beds are being built is so far behind that curve that it's going to be a crisis in terms of how are we going to be able to house all these residents and provide care. So even from a simple supply demand perspective, the investment opportunity is enormous.
So talk us through the numbers of actually investing in one of these buildings, and what are you looking at cost-wise to fit up these buildings? And are you, I have so many questions. Are you billing Medicare, Medicaid? So let's start with, okay, so I've decided I want to purchase one of these properties. How do you start?
Yeah. Let's step back first. There's 4 different ways you can invest in assisted living. There's maybe more, but there's 4 ways that we tend to teach and talk about. And it's going to kind of go from a spectrum of passivity. So first is going to be your least passive. At the end, it's going to be your most passive. So first would be owning the real estate and owning the operation. So that would be you own the residential assisted living home, you own the business, you provide all the day-to-day care. And really, we teach folks like you should be hiring a manager who then runs the home for you. But at some point, potentially, you're going to be the one who's doing all the day-to-day care and hiring the caregivers and all those sorts of things. So that's number one. The first way would be owning the real estate, owning the operations. Going to be way more time intensive, way more active, but the cash flow potential is higher. And so if you own a nice boutique residential assisted living home that is, fully occupied, and you're providing really high quality care, you can cash flow $10,000 to $15,000 per month on one of these homes. So just one residential assisted living home can create financial freedom, which is unbelievable. And you're providing such a great service. And that's the thing I want to hit on is like the key is really providing great care. And we can provide so much better care in these residential assisted living homes. And physicians, we understand what seniors need. Like we have the opportunity, the knowledge to really make a huge impact in this space. So anyways, the first way would be own the real estate, own the operations. The second way you could invest would be owning the real estate and then leasing that out to an operator. We call that the lease to operator model. That's how we got started. And so basically, you own the house, you're the landlord. You find an operator who wants to come in and run the business, and they lease that from you on a commercial lease, typically 3 to 5 years. It's like a double net lease. You're still responsible for mortgage, taxes, insurance, and then property insurance over the structure of the house. They're responsible for all the day-to-day care, liability insurance, maintenance, minor renovations. We try and have our homes ready to go to be licensed and renovated beforehand. But that is a great way to get started as well. That's going to be, of course, less passive because the operator is going to be running the day-to-day care. But we typically cash flow about 2,500 to about 4,000 or so per month on each of those homes. We have 5 of those in Arizona. So that's a great cash flow vehicle that's more passive than short-term rentals, and again, providing a better service.
Okay. Okay. So how do you find these lease operators
Yeah.
to operate your residential assisted living?
Yeah, absolutely. So typically, the best way to get started, if you're looking, hey, I want to do a lease to operator model, would be
Mhm.
finding a realtor who specializes in assisted living. And so they do exist. They can be a little bit difficult to find, but if you spend some time on Google or like on LinkedIn, you can look for like senior living specialist or assisted living realtor, those sorts of things, and you can typically find them. They're a great place to start for multiple reasons. One, they typically know the zoning and licensing requirements that exist and that you need to follow for assisted living. So they can be really helpful there. There's a lot of different zoning and licensing requirements, and some places will even have distance requirements. So your home couldn't be within 1,200 feet of another one and those sorts of things. So they typically know those requirements. They also will typically have a Rolodex of operators who are looking to expand their business. So they already have the operators that you can tend to work with. And then they typically know like the fire alarm folks and the sprinkler folks and some of the other service providers that you're going to need to get the house renovated if it's not already renovated for assisted living. So working with a realtor who specializes in assisted living can be really helpful. If you can't find that, then there's really great Facebook groups. We have, I mean, shameless plug, we have the largest Facebook group for assisted living. If you just go to Facebook groups and type in residential assisted living, you'll find us. That's a great way too to just network with people and find people. You can also look on like LinkedIn and Indeed. And then also, people will tend to call different homes and be like, hey, do you have anyone who's interested in expanding? Or are you guys interested in expanding your operation? So, a lot of different ways that you can potentially get started. The hard part is finding that key operator, the operator who really has a heart for assisted living,
Mhm.
because that's your linchpin. That's the most important thing for the leased operator model.
So, if you just own the real estate and you're hiring an operator, is there any legal risk to you as a physician? If it was anyone else that owned just the property, they probably wouldn't be at risk. But if people see that there's a physician that owns this assisted
Yeah,
living but doesn't run it, are you at risk at all if the operator messes
yeah.
up anything?
Not an attorney, but I'm told no. And there's a couple ways to mitigate your risk. One, typically, I would recommend you own this in an LLC for anonymity. They don't even know that I'm a physician. None of the residents know that I'm a physician that's there. The operator probably does just because he knows who I am. But I'm not tied specifically to that property, not providing any care to any of the residents in that property. Then we own that with a holding LLC that's then owned by our holding LLC. So there's multiple degrees of separation. Then we have liability insurance through a property insurance, and then the operator is also required to have a substantial liability policy for the care that they're providing. And we have it as a requirement in the lease that they have to write us as on the rider. We're on the insurance policy as well. If anything were to happen and they were to somehow come after us, which I don't even know how they'd find us, then they could potentially go after that. And then we have the liability policy through the operator that's covering for that as well. So no long-winded answer to say no more risk for being a doctor than would be if anyone else bought one of these homes.
Great. And what kind of cash flow are you looking at with you as just the owner and the operator operating it?
Yeah, so lease to operator, you can typically cash flow about 2,500 or more per month, depending. And all this is going to depend on where are you operating, the quality of the house, how many residents you can have. Each state is going to have their specific requirements in terms of number of residents that you can have. For example, in Arizona, max number of residents is 10. In Texas, it's 16. In Colorado, it's 16. So it just depends where you're operating in terms of what that's going to look like. And then what does the market rent or resident rate typically look like in that area? For example, the median rate right now is about $5,000 per month, but you can do more specialized care like memory care, and then you can charge more because it's higher level of care. So more services are needed, and that could look like 8,000, 8,500 a month or so. And then, real quick, I forgot to mention when you're trying to figure out what to lease the home out for, there's not necessarily a great way to find that unless you're looking at different comps in the area of folks who are doing assisted living, and you're on different Facebook groups and those sorts of things, and networking and figuring that out. But usually, it's about 3 times the long term rate. So if you could rent your house out for $2,500 a month as a long term rental, then you could probably rent your house out for about $7,500 per month, give or take, for a lease to operator model from that perspective.
That's a good rule of thumb to know.
Yeah.
When you're looking at these properties, what are you looking at that might be different than if you're looking for a long-term renter?
Yeah, the first thing is you want to make sure that it's single story, and you want to make sure that it's a pretty large property. We get people all the time who are like, "Hey, I have this 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 2 story house. I think it'll be perfect for assisted living." I'm like, "No, that's the opposite of what will work." From what we- so typically, you're looking for single story, large, as many bedrooms and bathrooms as you can have, because that's going to offer the ability to have more private rooms, which will then you'll be able to charge a little bit more for. We tell folks typically shoot for about 300 square feet per resident. And the reason it's important to think that way is because some states and localities will have square footage requirements, which would be like, hey, you can have 2 residents in a bedroom, but it has to be a 10 by 14 room or bigger. And so if you have that kind of square footage mindset of 300 square feet per resident or 3,000 square feet for 10 residents, that'll typically meet those requirements. And then think creatively about how you may be able to add more bedrooms and bathrooms. So, for example, you don't really need a garage for assisted living. So maybe you could convert that to 2 more bedrooms. Those sorts of things can be really helpful to think through. But the more bedrooms and bathrooms you have will be helpful. You typically want to have a nice kitchen. Either a chef's coming in and preparing the meals, or the caregivers are preparing the meals. So a nice kitchen is important. A good dining area where ideally all the residents can be at one time to build that community atmosphere is really important as well. And then specific things for the house you'll typically need a fire suppression system, so sprinklers installed. That is can be a beast, and so reach out to folks who have done it before and get multiple quotes if you're looking for a sprinkler system. And then you need a fire alarm monitoring panel. So that's essentially tying the house to 911 if something were to happen. They can respond quicker. And then you oftentimes are going to need grab bars in the showers, grab bars at the toilet, a roll-in shower, a wheelchair accessible shower. Not every bathroom needs to have that wheelchair accessible shower, but you need to have at least one or two in the house. And then some states will require specific size egress windows or widened door frames for wheelchairs and or wheelchair ramps. So it's going to, again, depend on your specific location where you want to invest in, but those are kind of broad overview of things that you're looking for in a house. And so if the house doesn't already have it, you can certainly renovate into assisted living home.
So this sounds like it would really jive with my mission in life, which is to provide care, and sounds like it jives with yours, that especially as we see older people growing more distant, and more lonely and more depressed, sounds like a really nice way to continue to work and work towards providing care for the elderly, but in a different way. I mean, it sounds all really great. Give us some downsides, though, so I can be more
Yeah.
realistic about my expectations.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. I think it's an incredible way to provide care. And I think that's why physicians and healthcare workers are really drawn to the space, because we understand the need, and
Mhm.
we can provide better care from that perspective. Some downsides, again, it's going to kind of depend on which ways you want to invest. So real quick, those 2 other ways that you can invest, I mentioned 4. So
Yeah.
own the real estate, own the operations, lease to an operator. The other way would be you lease a home from a landlord. So you're the business owner, you want to lease the home, and then passively investing in one of these deals. So that'd be like partnering with us or partnering with another investor, or joining us on a syndication or something like that. So those are the 4 different ways. The downsides would kind of depend on which category, but we'll focus on the owning the real estate, owning the operations, because a lot of these could also translate to leasing to an operator. The hardest thing is going to be getting good caregivers. your staff. And it's your biggest expense, right? You have to have 24/7 care. So you're at least paying someone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So your staff is going to be your largest expense. And it's hard work. It is easier for staff to come from these big box facilities where they're taking care of 20 residents to a house where they're taking care of 5 or taking care of 8. So that's helpful, but it is still hard work. And so when you find a really good caregiver, make sure you're treating them really well, doing whatever you can to compensate them appropriately, and try and retain those folks if you can. That's going to be really important. The same goes for the leased operator side of things. Everything falls on that operator. And so you want to make sure that the operator is really solid as well, because that's the most important piece. After that, it would be filling up the home probably. So, how are you marketing and how are you getting new residents? I think physicians have a leg up in this regard because if you think through potential referral partners, right, like discharge planners at the hospital, social workers working, networking with folks who work in the ER, local clinics of primary care docs who are taking care of a lot of these seniors. Those are some really easy ways that we could get plugged in pretty easily just by nature of our profession to get
Right.
more residents. And then some other ways to do that would be, like marketing to the community, going to a lot of local events. Like we're getting ready to have the Colorado Senior Games here. If you are here, that would be a great way to do that. Like wherever you can get your name out there and telling everybody what you're doing. Can be really, really beneficial as well. So there's a lot of ways to get out there and market your home. Once you get residents in there, once they experience how much better the care is, they're going to do the marketing for you. Them, their families, they're going to be referring you. And then the crazy thing is that a lot of these homes, they do not have an online presence. They don't have a website. They don't have a Google My Business account. They're not utilizing like SEO marketing. They're not utilizing free marketing. And so those are some easy ways that you can come in and plug in and just start using SEO, Google My Business, and getting your name out there as well. I would be remiss if I didn't mention placement agents. That is what some people do use placement agents to help for their home. So think about like a Place for Mom or something like that. That can be a way to do it. It's quite expensive. So typically you're paying a placement agent a month of the resident rate for that resident. So you could be paying a placement agent $5,000 or so per resident to have them placed in your home. But yeah, the big things would be good caregivers, a good operator if you're doing lease to operator, and marketing the home efficiently so that you're able to fill up the home quickly are the kind of more difficult pieces to the puzzle.
Fantastic. I feel like I've learned so much today. Thank you so much, Alex. If our audience wants to find out more about all of this investing that you're doing, where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me anywhere. I think I'm the only Alex Schloe that exists. So if you just Google me, you'll find me all over. For residential assisted living specifically, we do have a mastermind called the Row Room Assisted Living Mastermind. That's a great way to be in a community who's going to hold you accountable. The information is out there for everything. It's really that accountability and that implementation that's the hard piece. And so that is a great place. That's the Row Room Assisted Living Mastermind. And so you can find us there by Googling it or go to therowroom.com. On therowroom.com, the RALroom.com, we have a free 10-step guide to purchase your first or next assisted living home. So feel free to check that out. We also have a podcast, the Row Room Assisted Living podcast. And then, of course, I host the Physicians and Properties podcast as well. And so there are a lot of different ways that you can reach me and find me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I feel like you are teaching and doing so much good work, and really, really happy to have you on. We like to end each episode, though, with kind of a fun, lighthearted segment. So let me do that with you first before I let you go.
Let's do it.
Short-term rental or assisted living facility?
Assisted living.
Okay. Morning devotions or late night spreadsheets?
Morning devotions. I'm a big structure guy and a big routine guy. Early morning. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good way to start the day. Pay off debt first or invest early?
Invest early with smart debt.
Yeah, find a middle ground. I like that. W-2 security or entrepreneurial freedom?
Oh, freedom all the way. Yeah.
Well, Dr. Schloe, thank you so much. That was such a fun conversation and so inspiring and super tactical. If you're a physician ready to stop trading your time for money, start by checking out Dr. Schloe's podcast, Physicians and Properties, and visit physiciansandproperties.com for free resources, tips, and tools to help you get started. And as always, stay free and stay frugal, y'all.
The content shared on this podcast should not be taken as individualized financial advice. We are here to share our knowledge and experiences, but it is crucial to consult with professionals such as accountants, financial advisors, or attorneys who can provide personalized guidance based on your specific needs.